Okay, we're continuing with our series, Gems of Truth, Spiritual Wisdom from the Words of Jesus. Today we're looking at asking the question, where's your heart? And this is based on the saying attributed to Jesus from Matthew. It said, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." As we think about the things that we value, a great many of them fall into the realm of earth, where moth and rust can destroy them. And one of our jobs as a spiritual being, expressing as a human being, is to sort this out, to figure out how we are to be on this earth and yet maintain a spiritual awareness. Because the greatest problem that we have it as individuals and as a society, as a global society, is there is a very definite loss of spiritual anchor within the individual. There are a lot of spiritual movements. There's a lot of spiritual information out there. And what we do is we substitute the joining of the group or the reading of the book or the involvement somehow in a messenger or a message that is conveying this, and we lose sight ourselves of our connection with God. And so we find ourselves trying to use spiritual principles to keep our treasures intact, keep the moth and the rust away. And it's a gradual shift from what we are as a spiritual being and a practical understanding of how, as a spiritual being, we express through a body that obviously has all these needs that can be met with treasures that can be consumed by moth and rust. So it's a balancing act. And the day will come when we'll all step off this planet, and it'll make a lot more sense to us because we'll realize we're a lot grander than what we thought as we're moving through this earth experience in this body. But we're here now, and we want to be able to balance this. We want to be able to live, as Emerson said, with the privilege of immeasurable mind. We want to live our daily lives. We want to do what we do on this planet with the awareness that we're something grander than this. I was watching a little robin this morning. It actually wasn't that little. It was had spotted breast, but it was almost as big as the parent that was feeding it. But it was following the parent around, not even looking at the ground, just watching the parent. And I don't know if the parent was a male or the mother or father. I don't know the difference in robins. They look pretty much the same to me. And I know there's a way to tell. They know the difference. That's all that matters. But one of the parents was feeding this little baby, this big baby. And that's kind of how we enter this plane. You know, when you're in your mother's womb, and I assume all of us were at one point, we don't think about what are we going to eat today? What are we going to wear today? We live in a Garden of Eden. We start out absolutely taken care of. There's nothing that we can possibly want that we don't have already. But the moment we're born, the moment we pass through the womb and get that first spanking, suddenly we have needs, and we have people outside of us that are to fulfill those needs, just like this little robin. What's interesting about in just the short time I watched, is the baby could have found its own food. And nature has a pretty interesting way of bringing things about. But it could have just as easily done what the parent was doing, but it had become dependent on the parent. That's how babies are. That's the way that we're all designed in almost every aspect of the natural world. But the moment we're born, we then develop dependencies. We develop this idea that our good is outside of ourselves. Whereas as a fetus, we don't have that consciousness. There's no need. The word lack is not even in our vocabulary. Probably aren't too many words in our vocabulary at that stage, but you see what I mean? We're totally taken care of. There's not a thought of tomorrow, what tomorrow may bring. But the moment we're born and separated from that Garden of Eden womb, the idea of lack comes into play. And so it's really easy, like for the baby robin, to look at the mother or the parent as its source, rather than realizing it has its own ability. And it is coming to realize that, understand that one day the mother robin or the parent robin parent just decides we're not going to do this anymore. And the baby is left shaking his head. And it starts drawing on its own inner wisdom and looking for things to eat, and it finds things. And they're very successful. But that's how it happens, basically, is we don't know anything about lack of any kind, and then we do know about lack because we step into a body. And the human being, I think, has one of the longest periods of dependency on this earth. It's a pretty interesting thing. But it's natural, and that's the way it works. But the problem is we make a shift from the invisible as our source to something with skin on as our source, or some condition as our source. And so you need a person like a Jesus to come along and say, don't forget, you're more than your body. You're more than you think you are. You're a spiritual being. You were in existence before you were born. You'll be in existence when this body passes. So don't lose your understanding of your relationship to God, to a larger context. So the kingdom he's talking about is a spiritual kingdom. The kingdom Jesus spoke of is spiritual, not material. The material is the effect of an underlying spiritual cause. And this is what we lose sight of. On all of our pieces of money, it says, "In God we trust." And the original idea of that is to keep a larger context, keep our money in a larger context. This is a symbol of substance, of a spiritual substance. And of course, we've lost sight of that. Now our faith is in the symbol itself, in all the many forms. We're not even using money that much anymore, or a lot of people aren't. But our faith is in the currency system. It is in the bank account, basically. And there's nothing wrong with that, because that's part of what we have to have, part of what we do when we're here. Just like the little robin could say, well, I'm a spiritual being, so I don't need worms. I don't need insects. I don't need my parents to feed me. And that robin's existence wouldn't be too long in a physical body. It has to have it. We have to have the external. We have to have the things like money. We have to have clothing. We have to have shelter. We have to have all these things that we need. And Jesus said, your Heavenly Father knows you need them even before you ask. But we lose sight of that, the fact that that's actually the secondary. And that's why we have so many inner problems, why we feel so separate from God, why our religion has become a religion about God rather than a worship as an understanding of God as my source. We look up into the sky rather than within. We look away from where this source is. And so we treat all things outside of ourselves as the source of our good. And I think Jesus was saying that if you will first build a consciousness of God as your source, God as your supply, if one thing dries up, another will open. Because you carry that consciousness with you, and consciousness is the thing that expresses as your life. So it's a principle of not ignoring our material needs, but of holding to the idea that God is my source. If you're in a situation now where you feel you lack something, it's because maybe the mother bird has gone away. You don't know where she is. So you're saying, now I'm lacking. I don't have what I need. But the universe says to the baby robin, yes, you do. You have exactly what you need, and your mother, father were showing you how to go about finding it. It's all here, and I've proved that all your life because I'm the one that goes out and gathers the stuff for you, and you are the one that benefits. If you were paying attention, you would have gotten that. Unfortunately, the baby bird has the intuitive knowledge, the instinct we call it, but it's really an intuitive knowing of how to supply the body. And we all have that too, but because we get so dependent on external conditions, we lose that. We try to solve the problem by going out and arranging things rather than going within and finding that center of strength, that knowing that God is my source, and letting the situation unfold from that. It's finding peace within. We talk about inner peace. It's a real verbal wise, it is a big commodity. We love the word. We love the phrase inner peace. We're all seeking inner peace. And our reasoning is that as soon as I get everything out here settled, I'll be at peace. And that's where we start applying spiritual principles. If I pray and fix all this stuff out here, then I can be at peace. And that's exactly the opposite of how we are to approach this. And I think why Jesus probably was misunderstood. That we seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And that just simply means the nature of God. What are you? What am I? And how am I supplied? If I drop this body today, does that bring an end to me? No. So what am I? I'm something much more. I'm something much more than, as Walt Whitman said, is contained between my hat and my boots. I'm a spiritual being, and I'm not dependent on my physical aspect. And it's completely understandable why we get so attached to the material. Money is a pretty big deal. Housing is a pretty big deal. Clothing is a pretty big deal. Transportation. All of these things that we need to get around on this earth. Food, all the different kinds of things that sustain this body. And it takes money to bring all those about in this type of society. We don't trade, we don't barter as much, although some do. But there's got to be some exchange in order to bring in the goods that keep the body alive and protected and sheltered. So it's not something we just pass off, and I don't think Jesus was unaware of that. I think he was quite aware of it, that we have needs, physical needs, and those are to be met. But the question is how, and if the spiritual dimension is of any value, how do we employ it? How do we use it? If spiritual principles are to be of value to us, how do we employ them in a way that keeps everything in perspective and we express that which we need on the physical level? The treasure in heaven is the building a consciousness of God as your invisible ever-abundant source of all good. I've discovered on YouTube there are all kinds of very helpful meditations, guided meditations. If you haven't looked at any of these, it would be, I'd highly advise that you do. There's things for prosperity, there's things for healing, there's things for guidance, and you just basically listen through your earbuds or whatever, and relax and turn yourself over for a time to this inner process. I find it very helpful, very healing. That's how we build a consciousness, not just in that way, but this is one way, one tool that we have available that will help. There are many people that are offering these things for nothing, on the internet. It's pretty incredible what's out there. But what we do, if you're struggling with something right now, you understand that the struggle, your life, is taking place inside of you. And that's difficult to understand sometimes, because it sure looks like it's out there. It looks like it's in those people and those situations. But just think about that. As I have said many times, you can be sitting here away from the problem, away from that problem person, and you can be in a fight with them. You can be upset. You can be having a very negative experience because your life is here. It's taking place in your consciousness. And so we sit here and we can't figure out how to work this out, and we battle with all the imagined forces, and they are imagined because they're in our imagination. It doesn't mean that the situation is not there. Let's forget that for a while. Just accept that it is. But where can we do something about the problem? And that's where something like meditation comes in. You can sit in a chair, lie on your bed, and let someone help you change your mind. Change the way you see this thing. And in 30 minutes, you can feel like you are living a different life. Just because you let go of all of the energy, this stuff that's bouncing off the inside of your head. You can let that go and reprogram yourself. And I don't like to use that word reprogram, because it's sort of like a computer thing where you just program your thinking. You want to make a shift in perception that out here this stuff is going on. You're the baby robin whose parent is now gone, thinking, I have nothing now. But the universe is saying, oh, but you are the answer. You do have something. You are the answer. The thing that you seek is within you. It's not a worm. It's a knowledge on how to get the worm. It's understanding on how to fit into your niche perfectly, how to gather and sustain your body naturally. As I put out in my book, the robin wouldn't go learn from the eagle, because the robin has no need to soar a mile in the sky or pick up a rabbit. It doesn't do that. That's not what it needs. What it needs is what it already has. There's this instinctive knowledge, this intuitive knowledge that kicks in. It knows how to do what it does. And the eagle itself, think about an eagle chick. We were rafting a couple of years ago and came upon about 5 of them sitting on the edge of a nest. Not 5, there were 5, but they were not all probably from the same nest. I don't know where those 5 baby eagles came from, because they usually have 1 or 2, but anyway, doesn't matter. So you imagine an eagle in a nest. It's always been there. Never been outside that nest. Sitting on the edge of it one day. What does it take for that eagle to jump off the edge of that nest? There's something in that bird that knows how to employ the physical laws that will bear it up. And those laws have been in place from day one. They were in place long before the eagle was hatched. There's something in that bird and it's called faith. It's a faith and it's an intuitive knowing. That doesn't mean it doesn't tighten its stomach when it jumps off for the first time. Can you imagine what that would be like? We've all done stuff for the first time. I remember I was at the dentist the other day, and he was telling me that he had the picture of the first injection he ever gave. I thought, wow, that's cool. If you're a dentist. Well, I have a tape of the first talk I ever gave. And if you ever want to blackmail me, get hold of that and threaten to sell it. I'll pay you whatever. It's like you have to do stuff for the first time. And that's always difficult. To draw the courage to do it. But somehow you do it. There's something in us that can do that. We don't think we can do it. But we pull on that, and that's the thing Jesus is talking about. This is the kingdom of God. It's that part of you that's already finished. Now, maybe you've never done that thing, and you don't know exactly how to do it. But something in you knows. Something in you can be drawn upon and brought into expression. So you're at a situation in your life now where you're saying, I don't know what to do. And it could be a healing situation. It could be a prosperity situation. It could be any kind. And one part of us is looking for the parent bird that's not there and saying, I don't know what to do. I don't have my support. It's gone. But Jesus is saying here in this parable that yes, you do have your support. Don't put your faith in the parent bird. Put your faith in God in you. There's something in you that knows how to do whatever it is you need to do. There's something in you that knows how to make your path straight, how to introduce somebody, how to draw somebody into your life that will help you, that will show you. And it's not that you're dependent on that. You're dependent on the guidance that you know is forthcoming. It doesn't matter if the guidance shows up as a person, as an idea, as an unexpected check. It doesn't matter how it shows up. What's important is the quality of experience you're having. That is, you're going through your day and you're worried sick about something. What kind of experience is that? What kind of quality is that? So where does the spiritual stuff come in? Does it fix that kind of thing? And the answer is yes, it will. If you understand that if your heart has been in where the moth and rust wreak havoc in the outside appearance, if that's where your faith is, then you've got nothing to hope for because that's changed. Something's different now. But does that mean that the answer that you seek is gone, that you don't have the ability to get it? And the answer to that is no. I absolutely have everything I need at this moment. And the strange thing about this is sometimes the way to get it is to sit down and be still. Do exactly the opposite. It's the bow and arrow analogy. You know, when you're shooting an arrow, you pull it back the exact opposite direction that it should be going or will be going. But you're getting power. You're getting momentum. You're storing energy. And that's a good analogy of what meditation is. It's to be still and know. To be still and touch that place in yourself where the answer you thought should be there is not. But does that mean it's going to stop? No. It means that which you are seeking is still coming forth, but probably in a different form, in a different way. So you have that consciousness. You begin to build your faith in God, your faith in the invisible. That's building consciousness. God is my source. When the parent bird is your source, that's your consciousness also. That's why Emmett Fox said life is consciousness. Because what you accept as true, that's how it appears to you. So if you say God can never be taken away, my source can never be diminished. God as my source is present now, stirring new life, new inspiration, new ideas. That it's here now. I'm building consciousness in the direction of the answer rather than enforcing the problem. So if you have a healing need, you envision the reality of your present spiritual wholeness. A firm wholeness is your reality. That it is now interacting with the atoms and cells of your physical body in ways that demonstrate wholeness. We may be carrying some baggage around that we need to get rid of, that we need to let go of. And that's, again, the value of meditation is you let go of everything. And you say to yourself, if I'm carrying something that's making me sick, I'm willing to let it go. And what if that something is anger over some argument that I've been engaged in with someone else? It's not resolved. Can I let that go? Just tell yourself, I can let it go for 30 minutes. I can let it go for an hour. I can let it go for a short time. It'd be like the robin saying, can I let go of the belief that my parents are my source? Just for a while, can I just sit here and meditate? Can I just sit here and know that I'll be okay? And so the robin sits there, and pretty soon he sees a worm. He wouldn't have seen it because he had his eye on his mother. It's like the Zen saying, I think, I point to the moon, but you can't see the moon because you're looking at my finger. When we're looking away from the source, and that is when we're looking at a former channel, we can't see the answer. So it's very important for us to let go, to spend time just letting go and knowing that God is our source, that God is now working through me as my health, as my prosperity, as my guidance, as whatever it is I need in life. It's working through me now. And I fully embrace that. And if I get up and go about my business and I pick up the old way of thinking again, which I probably will, then I bring myself back. When you touch that place of power in yourself, it's no longer a labor to go there. Like when we think of meditation, I have too many things to do. I can't be still. We don't have time for it. If you make time, then you'll find that you look forward to that time. It becomes part of your consciousness. When you find yourself getting upset, you say, oh, I remember I can let this go. I can remember that there's a power greater than myself working through me at this moment to bring about a solution. We don't ignore the problems. We don't ignore the things that are going on. There's been a whole aspect of religious movements that have ignored the material, have deprived themselves of the material realm and thought that was somehow good, or just got by minimally on stuff. There's a balance there where you can have too much, so much, and most of us are on the so much side. If you don't believe it, have a yard sale sometime. We have a lot of stuff we don't really use or need. And that's how our consciousness looks as well. There's a lot of stuff in there that's just there. It's not really serving anything. So our time of letting go, a lot of this stuff comes up. We see sometimes that we're carrying things that we no longer need. If I stop saying that the parent bird is my source, whatever form that takes, and say that God is my source. Be still and know that. You'll begin to get a new sense of power, a new sense that everything is working out in a way that you will understand, if not now, if not today, sometime shortly. Spiritual guidance. If you need direction, open your mind to the borderless reality of spirit within you. This energy is now building and sustaining worlds that haven't entered your mind. I was reading something one time about guidance, and the suggestion was the moment you open your mind to a solution, there's somebody possibly on the other side of this planet that could be putting something in motion that will work clear around to your solution. When you think about omnipresence, the answer that you seek may not be in front of your face, but that acceptance puts something in motion. It's like, how does your body hold itself together? How do the cells in the top of your head know what the cells on the bottom of your feet are doing to keep everything together? There's an intelligence that is working through us, and we don't limit it to just this body. God is omnipresent, means everywhere present equally at the same time. So if there's somebody on the other side of the planet that can answer your problem, they'll start it the moment you accept. It's a nice thought. There's no way we can probably prove it. But that's how we think. That's faith. That I don't know how this thing's going to work out, but it is going to work out. So I let go. There's a lot of improving the quality of your life is letting go. Because where is your life? It's your thoughts, your feelings. It's what's going on in you. Don't struggle toward a new external condition. Affirm a new inner condition by seeing and feeling where you want to go emotionally. And that's a very important thing, because our habit is to go out and look. The little robin will go look for its parent rather than look for a worm. And looking for its parent, it'll never see the worm. Very basic lesson, but it's true. If we look to God as our source, and we're open to whatever possibilities this infinite intelligence can bring about, we put ourselves on a whole different level, and most importantly, we experience inner peace. We experience peace. Just work with some of these meditations on YouTube, and you'll see that just within a few minutes, you can change. You'll change your inner experience. Jesus didn't denounce materiality. That's a mistake a lot of people make. He mastered it. Big difference. He didn't denounce it. He mastered it. He did criticize people who were totally owned by what they owned, by their possessions. The rich young man came up and said, "What do I do to inherit eternal life?" And he said, "Sell everything you own." He didn't say that because that's true of everybody. He said that because he saw the young man was owned by his possessions. He was saying, let that go and you'll see a larger perspective. You'll get eternal life. You'll get a consciousness of this larger perspective. His heart was in the all-encompassing reality of God, his unfailing spiritual source. So it's a very simple lesson and a very simple practice. And every one of us have something in our life that we would like to change. We would like to see unfold in a different way than it is. So think of yourself, are you looking at the parent robin? Or are you affirming, I have everything I need to make my own way? I have everything now. It's all incorporated in me. So I release the parent and I turn my faith into God. All right. Got it? Thanks for coming out. We'll see you next week and hope to see you at the meeting a little later.